right. Well, good morning. Thank you all for joining us today for our fourth venture into the series, Wait, You Collect What? Diving into the specialty collections and unique challenges that give some of our institutions a pause and extra skills. My name is Beth Sanders, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Registrar's Committee, Western Region. And I hope that you all have your boarding passes ready because today we'll be taking off on our exploration of art and exhibits in very public places. First, I just want to quickly thank our sponsor for today's event. As one of the nation's oldest and most respected fine arts handlers and shippers, Cook's Crating and Fine Arts Transportation is the company that many of America's greatest art museums, galleries, and collectors turn to for their art moving needs. Based in Los Angeles, California, don't forget to contact them for your crating, shipping, installation, and storage needs. If you're not a member of RCWR, please consider joining today. We represent collections professionals in our 9 Western states. In addition to this webinar series, we have an amazing quarterly newsletter that'll be coming out in late October. We host regional events, and we plan an annual community service initiative in conjunction with the Western Museums Association annual conference coming up next week. So a lot going on. Membership is only $15 a year, so it's also a great deal. So if you're not a member, you can go to rcwr.org or scan that QR code and do so today. Membership is annual, so we're coming up on renewal period. So if you are a new member registering today, you'll get an extra couple of months free because we'll roll you over to 2024. Before I introduce our speakers, just a few quick Zoom logistics. We are recording today's webinar, so if you don't want your likeness to be captured, please make sure to keep your camera off. While we'll have the slides up most of the time, when we transition, your likeness could be there. We'll also be posting the recording on the Registrar Committee Western Region YouTube page. So if you're not following us there, you should be doing that, but you can also look in a couple days or at our Facebook page for that content. We'll just ask that during the presentation part, everyone keep their mic muted so we'll be able to hear our speakers. And then when we do get to the Q&A at the end, you're welcome to then ask your questions either in the chat or out loud. So without further ado, I have the honor to introduce our 3 speakers for today. And we are fortunate to have this amazing trio from the San Francisco Museum, San Francisco International, the SFO Museum registration team. So in the order that we'll be hearing from them this morning, let me first introduce Alisa Tsuji. Alisa has worked with the museum for 17 years and is currently the curator in charge of registration. Before joining the SFO Museum team, she also worked at History San Jose, the Oakland Museum of California, and the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art. Next, we'll hear from Jamie O'Keefe, who joined the team in November 2022 as the museum's registrar. Prior to this role, she served as the registrar for the Walt Disney Family Museum for 8 years. And then last, we'll get to hear from Claire Tsai, who has been an associate museum registrar with SFO Museum since March of 2020, quite the fortuitous time to start any new job. But before that, she was working in the museum development field when she managed to find her way home to Registration Sanctuary, in the greatest of words I've heard that described as. Their combined 20 plus years of experience with this specific institution will help us understand the complexities of upholding museum and AAM standards in this really unique and fast-paced environment. And so with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and turn it over to them.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to share my screen and
click on that
this one.
to share. And here we are.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Beth, and welcome everyone. We are the registrars at SFO Museum. And our presentation is in plain sight, art in a very public space, because we love puns here, as most registrars do, I think. So today's You Collect What episode will focus not really on a bizarre or unique collection, but instead on the notion of like thinking outside the box to do your job, which is what the 3 of us frequently do here. And at SFO Museum, our exhibit galleries are actually sprinkled throughout the airport in very public places, of course. And today we'd like to talk about like our unique challenges around like planning, creating, and installing exhibits in the middle of like a busy airport terminal, people like within feet of each other of what we're doing. And in addition to our work on rotating exhibits, we'd also like to share how we tackle like maintenance of the large scale public art collection in the airport terminal. So we are responsible for that maintenance. So buckle your seatbelts, I know, and put your tray tables back up and enjoy our presentation. So, oops. Okay, so yes, Beth, thank you for our great introduction. And I wanted to share briefly what each of us will be talking about today. I'm Alisa Tsuji, and I'll be talking about SFO Museum generally and our exhibition program. We'll take a brief spin throughout our airport terminal so you can really see like how open and out in the public these galleries are that we work in. And also I'm going to give you a quick overview of the airport's permanent civic art collection that my colleague Claire Tsai maintains. Jamie O'Keefe, my colleague, will be talking about our actual exhibition process from like concept inception to processing incoming artwork, design and mount making, and then actually installing at the terminal gallery site. That's kind of what differentiates us from other museums, is that we have to schlep everything out to the gallery site because we can't be closing a gallery because it's in the middle of the airport. Finally, my colleague Claire Tsai will be talking about the City and County of San Francisco's permanent art collection at the airport. And she'll be actually sharing a recent conservation project on a massive ceiling sculpture in Terminal 2 by the artist Kendall Buster and a few other examples of art maintenance. So a quick background history about SFO Museum. So in 1980, the San Francisco Airport Commission collaborated with the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco to create an exhibition program at the San Francisco International Airport. And after a really successful first year, a department was established within the airport to produce exhibitions that would humanize the airport environment and reflect the cultural life of the San Francisco Bay Area. And in 1999, we are proud to say the SFO Museum became the first museum in an airport to receive accreditation from the American Alliance of Museums. And we were recently reaccredited in 2019. So, and this just shows a few of our wide range of exhibits that we have here at the airport, including opera costumes, early American motorcycles, and kind of my favorite, Japan's beckoning cats, that wooden cat's very cute. So I'm going to take a quick spin through our mission statement just to, it'll help you understand why we do what we do. So our mission is to delight, engage, and inspire a global audience with programming on a broad range of subjects. And I really do mean a broad range. Like, for example, this is our mathematics exhibit in Terminal 2, where we showed everything from early adding machines to Rubik's Cubes, whole case on Rubik's Cubes, to sculptures demonstrating mathematical principles. So it really shows the broad range of exhibits that we do. We also collect, preserve, interpret, and share the history of commercial aviation. I'm not going to talk too much about our permanent aviation collection, but this is a quick glance at what we have in our aviation archives. We have like shows ticket jackets, luggage labels. We have photographs, airmail flight covers. So very interesting, neat collection, but not too much on that today. And finally, to enrich the public experience at San Francisco International Airport. And one of the biggest ways we do that is through our civic arts collection, in addition to our rotating galleries. SFO is home to more than 200 of these large-scale public artworks that are owned by the City and County of San Francisco. And my colleague Claire is the one that does a lot of the maintenance on it. On the left, you see the John Eckelman nets in Terminal 2. And on the right, it's the Alice Shaw mural in International Terminal G, which is above, as you can see, like gates to board your flight. So obviously, when we have to clean these, it is in the middle of the night because that's when passengers aren't there. So this map shows our 30 plus sites throughout the airport terminal. 20 of those sites are rotating galleries. We have a lot of galleries that rotate, and we do about 30 new exhibitions per year. And just to show you how we manage that, this is a snapshot of our exhibition schedule. We usually plan it about 5 years out, and the vertical columns are the months, and all the black squares that you see are changeover weeks. We do a changeover within 1 week, where on Monday we deinstall an exhibit, and by Thursday we're putting up a new one. So all the black squares are what we consider changeover weeks. On average, we change over about one exhibit gallery about once every month or a month and a half. So we are constantly busy here. And you might ask, like, oh my gosh, how do we do all these exhibit changes? We have a really amazing team of folks here at SFO Museum. This is a recent retirement party for one of our fabulous assistant directors. And a lot of people are actually surprised that we have this many people working in the museum. I mean, I've literally had several passengers come up to us during an exhibit changeover while we're out in the terminal. And they commented that they didn't realize so many people worked here. They just, and I've had someone tell me this, they just assume like magical elves like came in and just switched out the exhibits. And I'm like, oh no, we're real. We're real. I mean, we have 28 full-time staff members, including part-time staff and our 2 lovely summer interns. You know, museum administrators, we have curators, exhibit designers, registrars, preparators, collection managers and archivists, graphic designers, photographers, conservators, a social media coordinator. What we don't have, and what this is what kind of differentiates us from other museums, is that we don't have like IT, development office, maintenance, facilities, security. All of that is actually covered by the airport. So we don't actually have to worry about that. So I'd like to take you through now a quick spin through our terminal galleries to show you just how public they are in the public spaces. And we're going to start off with our international terminal. We have 2 long cases in the main hall of the international terminal. You could see on the left, and then on both sides of international lobby, we have sets of 8 cases. These are all pre-security. You don't need a ticket to go see it. And obviously our longer cases, we can show bigger things. Like the one on the left is an Isamu Noguchi show we did back in 2018, where we borrowed from the Noguchi Museum in New York. Those are big metal sculptures, as well as his paper lamps, which is a very nice, soothing show, I thought, for international. The picture on the right, we also have our recently installed Haitian metal art. It's up until, I believe, August 2024. So those 8 cases that you see on the right, that's literally right next to the security checkpoint line at international terminal. So we are really close to the public, but we make it work. We're very strict on security, the registrar team, of how we cordon off the space, and Jamie will be able to talk more about that in her section. Next up, we have our Harvey Milk Terminal. This is our newest gallery spaces in the new Harvey Milk Terminal 1. And I gotta say, if you're flying Southwest, JetBlue, or American Airlines, you will be able to get into this terminal, because unfortunately, both our exhibit sites are past security. So you'll need a boarding pass to be able to get through to here. But our gallery on the left is actually our alley gallery. And it's one of our, what we call a dart gallery. So we are able to show textiles and paper, works on paper, because we can get the light levels to below 5-foot candles. The lights, you'll see, just a side note, the lights are really bright in here because I think we had to turn them up for the photographer when he was taking this shot, and then we like turned them back down to 5-foot candles. So I know the lights can be a little jarring, because we are indeed showing in this photo, we're showing Philippine lace. It's actually lace made out of pineapple fibers. And this was a show that we had last year in 2022. This is one of the galleries that we can also have sound piped in, which is really exciting, because right now we have a show on San Francisco Opera where through the speakers, we can pipe in the opera music to go with our exhibit cases. So we are super excited about that. On the right, we have what we call our mid-pier gallery. It's actually the longest distance we have to walk from curbside when we unload the art at curbside to the actual space, because we have to schlep everything from our collections building, which is about 5 minutes away from the terminals. We have to schlep everything to the terminals. And then from curbside to that Mid-Pier Gallery, it's about a 5-minute walk. So we're like pushing these art like 5 minutes past the terminals, being very mindful of the passengers around us. Let's see, we also have our Terminal 2 gallery, which you saw the mathematics exhibit in the slide a few slides back. But this one is also post-security in Terminal 2. And this exhibit that you see here was called Surf's Up, Instrumental Rock and Roll, that we had in, I believe, 2020. And it was featuring guitars and memorabilia from surf rock artists of the 1950s and 60s. This was a great show to work on. I loved working on this show. From like such artists as Dwayne Eddy and Link Ray. We got so many positive comments about this, just people reminiscing about like, oh, I remember this. And we actually, I think, had a Spotify list that accompanied this show. So this was super exciting. We also have our Aviation Museum and Library actually in the corner of International Terminal. And this Aviation Library and Museum does host our exhibits from our permanent aviation collection. There's about 5 rotating galleries in there. And a fun fact is that this museum is actually an architectural adaptation of SFO's 1930s passenger lobby. So I wish I had an old photograph, but the terrazzo on the floor, the medallions, the arched passageways, those are actually replicas. It looks very much like the SFO looked like in 1930s. And let's see, just a quick, I know I said I wasn't going to talk too much about our permanent aviation collection, but I just wanted to pull up some quick highlights. We have over, let's see, 150,000 objects in our permanent collection, and we are still actively collecting. Just a snapshot of what we have. We have a lot of flight attendant uniforms, including this really fun one from Braniff International Airways. It's from when Emilio Pucci was actually designing the exhibit in the designing the uniforms in the 60s. We have airplane models, hat badges, everything to like cocktail napkins. This one's a Hello Kitty passport holder. I mean, we have all sorts of things in our permanent aviation collection. A lot of it you can find online on our website, sfomuseum.org. So feel free to take a spin through there too. We do have our fine art photography gallery. Let's see, the one on the left, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. The one on the left is post-security. The one on the right is pre-security. And it shows fine art photography from local as well as international photographers. We also have a video arts screening room in International Terminal where we should show 4 short films. It rotates each month. And we have documentaries, narratives, experimental films, short animations from a wide range of contemporary artists and filmmakers. And finally, of course, we do have our public art programs. So in addition to our galleries throughout the terminals and aviation library and museum that I showed you, SFO Museum actually has a really robust public arts program. In fact, we have over 140 public art pieces throughout the terminals and the Grand Hyatt Hotel. And the pieces are owned by the City and County of San Francisco, and it's managed by the San Francisco Arts Commission. But our registrar, our registration department, specifically Claire Tsai, is responsible for the maintenance and cleaning of many of the sculptures. Excuse me. And ceiling pieces. And this is just a sample of what we have. Sorry. So that's just a quick spin of what SFO Museum is, as well as our galleries. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Jamie, who will discuss the exhibition preparation.
Oh, thank you, Alisa. Well, how exactly do we get ready for an exhibition that will be installed in a very public place? As the newest member of the team and coming from a more traditional museum where we could secure areas during installations, it's been really interesting for me to learn about and experience this too. So when getting ready for a new exhibition, the curator and exhibition designer will often go on a site visit to a potential lender's collection to see pieces in person and to gather information from the collector. In this case, they visited the Beauty Bubble Salon and Museum in Joshua Tree, California. We borrow from both private collections and museums, and sometimes the lending organizations are a little different. For this exhibition, the curator wanted to focus on hairstyles and styling aids to demonstrate that hair is an important part of popular culture. This exhibition featured historical hairstyling tools, hair products, and novelty items, from early curling irons and hair dryers to one-of-a-kind sculptures made from hair curlers. And here's a peek at the interior of the lender's space. When pieces are selected for loans, we make arrangements with art handling companies to pack and transport the pieces to us. If the lender is local, we'll often visit to do the packing and transportation ourselves. When the pieces arrive, we allow them to acclimatize, and then we unpack and complete a condition report for each piece. Then they're ready for the exhibition designer to work his magic. Our exhibition designer works with the pieces to figure out his designs. Since he cannot do this kind of work on site where the pieces will end up, he arranges them within spaces that are set up to mimic the size and shape of the gallery where they'll ultimately be installed. Our collections and exhibition spaces are located within our building that's off-site and down the street from the airport itself. The exhibition designer makes notes to delineate the amount of space for each display case. His numbering system helps our preparation and registration teams understand the order of pieces for installation. And this is a mock-up for the display of an antique hair curling iron and its heater. The exhibition designer consults with preparation about the types of mounts and supports that'll be needed to safely achieve the look he wants for the installation. In this display mock-up, the pieces are mounted in a way to make them appear as if they're floating through the space of the case. So when we're ready for installation, we need to prepare and pack the pieces for transport. I had never seen this type of packing before, but I find it to be very creative and clever. We use a system of consistently sized foam core trays lined with soft foam. Pieces are usually packed with tissue within the trays, but when needed, we can use straps secured by T-pins pushed into the foam of the trays. This system stops the pieces from moving within the tray and helps cut down on the effects of vibration when the pieces are transported by truck. After the pieces are secured, we fill in the interstitial space with bolsters of tissue, balls of crumpled tissue, or even bags of packing peanuts. The trays are then closed up using a cardboard lid that is secured by T-pins pushed into the walls of the tray. And the trays can usually be stacked. And here's an example of a piece that needed some extra packing within the tray. In this case, it's wrapped in soft Tyvek and labeled so the person doing the unpacking is aware of what is within. The piece is then pinned into the foam core tray. And we use different ways to pack depending on the pieces. So these images show silver pieces that didn't require strapping and pinning, but were secured firmly but gently with tissue bolsters within the space of the foam-lined trays. And we also often utilize plastic tubs with adjustable dividers, depending on the sizes of the pieces. The pieces are secured within the divisions with tissue bolsters. Crumpled tissue pillows rest on top of the packed lids or packed pieces to fill the interstitial spaces and to serve as another barrier under the tub's cardboard lid. And when pieces are packed within trays and tubs, they're labeled for their locations within the exhibit. Then they're loaded onto wheeled racks and carts. These racks were custom made to fit the width of the trays. And we also use a color-coded system to help us quickly differentiate the sizes of the trays. When the racks are loaded and secured for transportation, the entire rack is shrink-wrapped to keep everything enclosed. Enclosing the contents helps keep everything together and safe during both the truck ride over to the terminals and while everything is rolled through the terminals to reach the galleries. When we do this, airport staff and passengers are also passing through the same space with their equipment and luggage and whatever else they may be bringing. People don't always pay attention to where they're going as well. The plastic wrap also helps us to keep an eye on what's being transported within the rack, while also partially obscuring the contents from passing people, hopefully cutting back on distractions a little bit. So the image on the left shows our truck parked at curbside in front of the airport and being offloaded by our preparators. You can see the packed racks coming off. To safely do this, our team must navigate the public, including cars and passengers who also attempt to offload themselves. It's usually a lot busier than what's seen in this photo. And on the right, you'll see our team rolling packed racks into the front doors of the terminal. We often wear bright, high visibility vests to help the public notice that we are moving things through the airport space and to help identify ourselves as SFO employees. Depending on where we're going within the airport, we also often need to pass through employee security screenings as well. And here we are at the installation space. To get ready, we cordon off the workspace with cones, yellow caution tape, and even rolling black curtains. Since the public is walking around with luggage and food and drinks, it's important to designate the workspace as clearly as possible. This particular location is right in front of the restrooms and nearby businesses that serve food. We all have the responsibility to keep an eye out for airport guests who may inadvertently walk into the workspace or also interrupt work to ask questions or directions. In this image, you can also see the tray system at work. The trays were built to fit onto our gray carts as well as onto the racks for smoother transportation. And here you can see one of our preparators with the case door open, marking placements on the deck with tape. And voila, here's the final installation of the exhibition Hairstyle. It was on display December 2020 through August 2021. And this is the final installation of the pieces that we saw earlier as they were being mocked up for layout and mount making. The pieces appear to be floating above the deck, capturing the look that was intended by the exhibition designer. And here's a short time-lapse video showing a deinstallation of the exhibition of sculptures. It'll show you how we don't close our gallery spaces, and we must work in a very active public space with constant activity. Okay, and next up will be our colleague Claire, who will talk to us about public art at SFO.
Thanks, Jamie. Wasn't that video a bit nuts? Just the caution tape and those safety cones protecting us and our work from the traveling public. But you can see how immediately we are with the flow moving through the airport. Let me just make sure I can get to the next slide. All right, I'm in this segment, I'll be talking about, I'll elaborate further on the public art collection at SFO and share some photos and time-lapse videos to bring you behind the scenes on the process of installation and maintenance of public artworks in the airport terminals. San Francisco International Terminal's public art program, which is provided by San Francisco Arts Commission and cared for by SFO Museum staff, such as myself, my colleagues. We offer travelers and residents a permanent collections of paintings, sculptures, mosaic, murals, and environmental works that reflect the Bay Area's commitment to arts and culture and inspires visitors from around the world. The collection comprises more than 200 pieces in a diversity of styles, media, by artists of art, local, national, international acclaim. And I must say that the number 200 is continue to climb. The Arts Commission, a city and county San Francisco agency, launched the SFO Public Art Program in 1977. And coincident with the construction of Terminal 3, as some folks may know it as the North Terminal in the earlier days. In the ensuing decade, it purchased or commissioned more than 60 works for the Terminals 1 and 2 and 3. And I'll point out that some of those spaces have since then been renovated as it continued to progress. And you can see here two large paintings. The one on the left you see is by William T. Wiley, and the one on the right is by Sam Francis. And they are just above the moving people movers, those are electric walkways. And so I'll point that out a little bit later, but when we do maintenance on these, we have to make sure we shut down the the people movers and make sure that we have a really safe area, just so that, as you can see here, passengers are freely moving about, and we want to make sure that everyone's safe and doing what we do, and then passengers are protected from the work as well. In 2000, so SFO completed the new international terminal, as you can see here in the picture, which became the home of to another 17 major works commissioned in accordance with San Francisco's Percent for Art Ordinance, which provides for an art enrichment allocation of 1% to 2% of the construction costs of a new or renovated civic structure, such as the large sculpture you see on the left side anchoring this side of the departures curbside. And I was advancing to show you just the variety, a selective view of a variety of the works that were commissioned into the international terminal. Some of the photo, as you can see on the upper right and the lower left corner, these works are directly above the boarding gates, right above those doors that people will enter to get onto their planes. And also the one on the upper left, it's a fresco mural with wooden sculptures of birds. The one in the middle down there, most people often ask me, where is that? Because we also have artworks in the customs corridor. So if you're an international passenger arriving, you must first go through the US Customs. And so most of these works sometimes sort of not as accessible to the public unless you're traveling internationally, but they're beautiful works, and I'm really always glad that people got to see them. And additionally, there are works like these large-scale stainless sculptures in part of the collections as well. And SFO remodeled Terminal 2, as I mentioned earlier, the spaces had gone through some renovations in 2011, and then moving on to Terminal 3 East in 2014. And these two renovation projects afforded the opportunity to reinstall important works from the airport's collection and commission large-scale works created specifically for the state-of-the-art facilities. And I will just advance through some images to show you the variety of the works in the collection. I love those Kusama shoes right there, those polka dot flowers. We have this lovely wall showing a trio of some of the best of San Francisco Bay Area. Robert Bechtel on the left with a Wayne Thiebaud in the middle and a James Torlakson. Now, what you see here are also examples of the large-scale installation I mentioned earlier. A lot of the works, as you encounter them, you realize that they are right in the middle of sometimes very, very busy part of the terminal. In this particular section, the one showing these silver spheres with LED lights inside, they're dynamic. This is an end of a pier that's shared by 5 operating gates. When we do maintenance, it's something that absolutely has to be overnight. And we're talking about 1 a.m. to maybe 3:30 in the morning. And you'll see us in scissor lift with our cleaning equipment. It's quite a scene sometimes. And the object to the right, sorry, the artwork to the right are this interactive interactive artwork that the children's love. We know it's very popular in the terminal. And also such as this here large-scale mosaic mural. And much like I said earlier, they're often really close to seating or they're right above escalators. Later, I'll show a time lapse of our team cleaning this. And I just wanted to then point out that most recently, 53 works commissioned into the SFO's newest terminal, Harvey Milk Terminal 1, begins operation in 2019. The new portion of it will open next year. So with that, more public were purchased and commissioned into the space, such as this lovely installation of lights. What you see there is ceramic pieces of the blue colors that the artist selected as it represents the sky of San Francisco for her. The macrame that you see a part of the work is actually power cord. Yeah, here there's Another example of the works that came into Parvimo Terminal 1. These are spaces that are very meaningful to the local. A lot of time people just love to get to see these as they arrive, coming home or entering the city to visit. Another example would be this large-scale ceiling insulation. One, just again, it's above security checkpoint lines. As you see passengers queuing up there, which means that when we do maintenance, just gotta make sure that it is in the overnight hours, and we provide ample cordoning and ample perimeter to allow our work. So what do we do to care for them? So some of the examples that you see here, such as me with my little hake brush, cleaning these 3x3 blocks. This is a whole wall of about just a bit over 5,000 of these small blocks. The artist is Iljan Kang, and I think he was living in New York City at the time, or maybe still is right now. And every day on his commute, he would allow, just this quiet little maybe art making moment onto these portable 3x3 pieces that eventually made up of this wall. To maintain and to clean, we use Neofist vacuum, hockey brushes, and other necessary equipment to remove the dust, bring attention to our conservator if anything needs further attention. And the one in the middle is actually our colleague conservator on a scissor lift, and you probably recall seeing that a picture of the large stainless steel sculpture, and this is when she was working on it. And you might wonder, why is this during the daytime? We talked about how the need to be able to access these at night when there are no passengers around. We're very cautious about safety. Having high reach equipment over individual is something that we really always try to avoid doing. And the reason why we can able to do this during the daytime was because during the early part of the pandemic, we got kind of lucky. We were able to take the opportunity of the terminal being shut down for that very short, well, somewhat during the period of when we were not flying commercially to allow us to do this during daytime. You also see on the right me on this ladder. We have an interactive piece also in another part of the children's play area in Terminal 2, a very popular piece called the butterfly wall, where individuals can use the hang cranks to activate and ascend the butterfly as it spins. But when we have to do maintenance, we use caution tape to set up a perimeter, put tape on the window. Really, all this is just to make sure that the safety of the public and our work is maintained. So here I have some time lapse to show you, and there are just a few seconds. So our colleague Alisa in the scissor lift right there, while I am at the bottom area with my extender stick, just cleaning away. A lot of the time it's the part of the routine is to just remove the surface dust. This provides an opportunity for us to get a closer look at the work as well. Let me just also then show you this, please. I believe you probably saw this in the earlier photo, the works that's installed right above those escalators. So we work very closely with colleagues in our facilities department, especially our operators who help us get all the way up there. This is articulate boom lift, and you can see the individual kind of on the foreground right there. These are our operators that provide the access, and myself, my colleague, were once again up there removing the dust that collect in onto the surface of the artwork. The access is something that we have to rely on a very close coordination with cross-departmental colleagues. And we're very fortunate to have that access as we operate inside an airport, and we have a robust facilities department to provide that support. So some picture on the right, just an image, a still image of how we are in that equipment. And the one right below is just this gray car full of items that we have to schlep to site. Sometimes we're not very close to our storage area by any means. So to minimize the time needed to get equipments. We thought through very carefully and planned what we need to bring, so it really streamlines our project. And I think in order to advance, there we go. So one thing I wanted to share a little bit more about is this maintenance project that Alisa had brought up earlier. The artist is Kendall Buster, and her work Topograph 1 and 2, which is in the departures lobby in Terminal 2, receive a large-scale maintenance treatment during the earlier part of this year. And as you can see here, the work is actually in two sections. On the right, if I may point out, there is a set of escalators that we kind of see the side view and leading up to a platform. So the pieces are on either side, on each side of that air walkway. So it's suspended, a ceiling mount, but it's also above very active spaces at the airport. People arriving to check in and depart, or arriving to then enter into the city. So when we got started on this project, it's due to the observation of a significant amount of dust collected into the artwork. Let me come back to this real quick. The work itself is porous, and which allows for the dust to continue to collect beyond its immediate surface. And when we also look at the location, it is right next to doors that leads to curbside, with cars coming by, buses, trucks and whatnot. And so every time those doors open and close, essentially is allowing for the dust to continue to have access to the work. So over the years, we're able to do routine maintenance, to do topical, to remove the dust. But over the course of these years, as the work is installed roughly 10 years ago, it really needed some help. So we got planning, we got going, and I would just say, like, it took about 4 months of the overall planning. And you can see here that we have site visits where a team of preparators, ourselves, facilities director, actually there is a passenger that just walked right through our work right there. And so again, just pointing out just how immediate we are to the rest of the airport. And so it took about 4 months of planning. We looked at several locations. One of the jokes I like to tell people is that we have big spaces, big atriums, and very little doors, sort of in comparison in terms of when we're thinking about access. And sometimes there are multiple sets of access points where door sizes differ. So we looked at several locations to eventually arrive at where we landed for the workshop. But we have to check door heights. We're looking at areas that are not activated just yet to use, perhaps kind of catching that moment and having access to it before the final purpose of the space is fulfilled. And it then took about another 2 months for the full coordination. And the series of photos I wanted to show you is showing how, when I was mentioning earlier, we work closely with our facility department as well. They have a full shop: carpenters, painters, electricians, plumbers, all of that. And we were able to receive support from our carpenter shop. The carpenters, after we determined this location, which interestingly was an old Starbucks. It used to be, when it was open, it was a location for a Starbucks coffee shop. During the pandemic, it closed operation, and it's going to soon become another retail space at some point. But we realized that this could just work because we liked the tall ceilings. As you saw some of the works in some of the pictures that we showed earlier, the works are not small. And so we're relying on spaces that could accommodate the size of the work. And so our carpenters got thinking and got going with the building, and they started to build out a workshop for us that had a temporary wall and have these sheeting fire retardant material to provide on one end privacy, but also to mitigate dust travel. Again, this is, as you can probably see in the corner, this is right next to the check-in counters for Delta Airlines. And so passenger queuing up, we really wouldn't want to put them in a situation where dust is a problem. And then here's just some photos showing you how that workshop was coming together. It had a door where we can unveil this large sheet of curtain. And then as you can see in photos later, how we wheel the works in. So when we got to mobilization, the whole project took about 6 weeks. And this is this is essentially almost a 24/7 operation. So our work to deinstall and mobilize and reinstall occur at night, while in the morning, our conservator will then work on the cleaning and maintenance, the conservation of the piece. And we work with Ad Hoc Fine Art based out of Oakland on this project. And I just want to be aware of time, so I might be advancing through these slides a little more quickly. These are just examples showing how we bring the work up and down. We have a fantastic chainfall system that allows for the lowering and rehanging of the piece. And sometimes we have to navigate through tight spaces because we probably saw in the photo earlier as well, the walkway has a ceiling limitation. So some of these work exceed that height. And so we do eventually find ways to get around, literally getting around the escalators. And I point out earlier with that accessible door, this is a view of how we were able to wheel the work into the space and situate the inside. I would just want to also point out that the ceiling space is closed off because when we were planning and doing coordination, we also was required to meet with our fire marshal and making sure that spaces are well prepared for the work that we're doing. And here are some time lapse, and I'll just go through that a little quickly, but this is a video showing how we navigate through these tight turns to get to our workshop space. And this is then reverse, bringing a clean piece. Hopefully in the visual, you can see that it's a lot brighter than what the one that we just brought in, which was awaiting cleaning. And here's an example of how we use the scissor lift, the chainfall system to manage the installation, de-installation process. And let me see if I can get to the next slide. Oh, excuse me. Here we go. Another thing I wanted to point out, talking about support from our colleagues in the different departmentally, we need a space to be able to store the pieces that were able to make their way out the door and come to the museum, which allow for more access to our colleagues to address the cleaning and conservation work. And so they work with us to build this fantastic open slot crate system. And here I just wanted to show, when we're talking about cleaning, here's our conservator working on a test piece. So we brought 2 down in the earlier part of the planning coordination to experiment different methods. This is all in coordination and partnership with the San Francisco Arts Commission as we provide treatment proposal and eventually arrive at this at a process that we're all comfortable with. So having a way to see how our cleaning methods will be able to yield the most optimal result was important to us. And here's a view of how that was done. And Alisa, our conservator, also worked in that workshop space, as mentioned earlier. She will work during the daytime while we do the deinstall and reinstall at night. And here she is addressing some of the larger pieces that the one on the left is the one that one of the ones that couldn't leave the building, and then the ones that we were able to bring back, we were to set up a space for her to work on that as well. So that concludes my part. Sorry, I ran a little bit longer, but we're open to questions. Beth, I think feel free to either have us leave this up or continue to another visual. Let us know.
Well, I love the visual here. For those who don't know, this represents their animals. So everyone's personality. But we do have a question that came in from Jackie Cabrera, asking if you have overseen many outgoing loans to other institutions.
Most recently.
Outgoing loans. We don't do too many outgoing loans from our permanent aviation collection. There are a few over the years, but we like 99% of it is incoming loans for us.
And then for the the permanent public art collection, actually most recently we had an outgoing loan request. And so not often, but once in a blue moon.
Once in a blue moon. Mhm.
And hi, Jackie.
Sorry, what was that?
Say hi, Jackie. Hi, Claire.
Samantha asks, how much do you have to deal with security to and from the collections building?
Security. Let's see. Is that security like TSA?
Probably.
So if we are going through to the post security part, there are employee access points that we can go through with our badges. In like, I'd say about 10, 20 years ago, we used to not have those access points. So we would have to sometimes go through TSA with like art. Like I remember with our like photo shows, and the TSA would kind of give us some flack about like, hey, what's in those boxes? But most of the time these days we have our access points to get past security.
And if it's collections here at our offices, so we are in a combined administration building for storage, share with a lot of different airport departments as well, but we have a dedicated space in a particular arm of the building. And the badge access, as we mentioned earlier, are restricted to museum staff only, with visitors receiving escorted privileges. And so say like everybody else working in this building, that particular part is restricted.
Yep.
Yeah. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah. So we have a question. Do you have to insure the pieces that are displayed so publicly different than you would other works in your permanent collection?
Oh, good question. Insurance. I love it. I love insurance. Nope, all our insurance is covered. We're on a blanket policy with the airport. It is what we have on our permanent collection, as well as what's on our rotating exhibits. Everything is soundly insured. So I don't think it's different, and we're all under a blanket policy. So
That's pretty lucky. We have Portia here saying that they're joining from the University of Florida Museum Studies program and asking if any of you can talk about how you came into the museum field.
Oh,
Take it away.
Oh my gosh. Actually, yep, I went through SF State's Museum Studies program, and I graduated a while back. Actually, working at SFO was my internship, and I just never left. I had other internships, but I just kept coming back here, and I never left. So I've been here about 17 years. So,
and speaking of internship, that's how I found my way here as well. But I did take a detour into development, but very happy to come back to this. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I had worked at a museum at California Academy of Sciences in high school, and then went on to do other things, and then realized I really wanted to be back into the museum world. So I went through the museum studies grad program at State too, and went to a few different places, and now I'm here with my great colleagues at SFO.
yeah.
All great paths. Samantha asks, when you need equipment like the boom lifts that the airport does not have access to on site, how do you coordinate the delivery of these necessary tools to exhibition spaces inside the terminals?
Oh, like sheety without help.
Yeah. So when there's a certain type of rigging that requires larger crane systems, so in the planning and coordination process, we'll identify the vendors who may be able to provide those. We'll receive the contract to provide those equipments, and they will then get delivered to the airport. small doors, right? We talked about that earlier. So we need to be very selective on the equipments provided so that they can be very nimble. They can actually come into the space. So spider cranes is another example where it provides us with that flexibility, nimble and small coming in, but able to really do the big jobs. So we will work with vendors to source the necessary equipments when needed.
You've made me feel like my 2,000-pound torpedoes are really small artifacts, easy to move around. So I've appreciated this. What has been the worst or most contentious interaction with a passenger that you've had?
Oh my gosh, just one? Just one
How much
instance?
time do you
I know,
have?
how much time do you guys have? Let's see. So we get a lot of questions asking for directions, of course, like where's the security checkpoint line? My favorite question I got was, where's my car? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like he literally said, where's my car? And I'm like, where did you park? So that's not really contentious, but we do have sometimes people experiencing homelessness, getting near our sites. So we have to be very vigilant about that. But do you guys have any other stories?
Yeah, actually during the Candle Buster project, that being overnight, it was a really wide range of experiences. But I would say probably the ding 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 number one is people needing directions. And sometimes when it's later at night, it's very understandable that individuals may feel tired and stressed out. So as they approach us to ask questions and trying to figure out where ride share is, Lyft, Uber, such and such, they may sometimes be more
Grumpy,
more emotive than
more grumpy, more loose with their words. It's all in the line of what we do. I mean, we're such a public space, we just kind of roll with it. So
yeah.
Well, it's a little after 11, so let's do one more question. I'm going to combine Jackie's last question here with one that I had too, which she asked if there are any big damages by the public. And I would also follow that up with, do you see any difference between the public art pieces that are near food or seating areas versus up in the air, easier to protect?
Big damage.
Oh, again, how much time do you have? May I take? Okay,
yeah, go for it.
So while it wasn't shown in the photo, and happy to share that if anybody wanted to reach out, but we have this long corridor, this particular corridor right after, say, your international passenger arriving and your event continuing on to your domestic flights. This long corridor has this installation, this architecturally immersive installation by Video Conchi. And it's these light beams that are lined with acrylic panels. And they extend from the ceiling that sort of terminates into what used to be pay phones, but now are courtesy phones, so they still work. And these are panels that are installed in ways that let me just say it's challenging. And what happens sometimes is with passengers, with different businesses operating here, luggage carts. What we have seen sometime with that work is the handle, if people are very close to it and they kind of catch an edge, and an acrylic panel brilliantly have a flex.
Yeah.
Up to the point where it snaps.
Yeah, and it'll just rip right off.
And we're talking about
snap. And these panels
big
are
broken,
pretty huge. They're like 4 feet by 3 feet, and they'll just snap. And then good thing airport has eyes everywhere, including our CCTV cameras, as well as airport police. They'll notify us right away if there's damaged artwork. So we have to like rush out there, do triage, and then get the conservators to come in.
Yeah.
So I would say occasionally there's damage, but we always deal with it.
Right.
So,
and we do have a large scale mural stainless glass in the space near to the Grand Hyatt Hotel. And when you mentioned earlier, sort of like stressful interactions. While we were not there, but unfortunately, also through CCTV, we
Caught
were
on
able
camera.
to, yes, we witnessed that an individual directly caused damage to the
Right.
stained
He
glass.
just like kicked,
Karate kicked.
yeah, karate kicked this glass mural, like, like out of so much anger. It's all caught on tape.
Yeah.
And then just like walked away. And we're like, what are you doing, buddy? Like, literally kicked a big hole in it. So,
and that's really unfortunate. And we when those type of situations happen, we usually we are typically notified right away, and then we reach out to our counterparts at San Francisco Arts Commission, so that we can begin a process of making the repair,
Right.
reinstalling the finished piece. And so it's a partnership where they outreach to the artist or the studio, and then proceed with the process of refabricating, while the legal aspect of things that we work together to handle claims and such. And then upon finished fabrication, we will then set up a reinstallation. And those things, while really unfortunate, but I always stress the public art aspect of the public aspect of public art it's just very public.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yep.
Some examples.
Yeah.
That's a great perspective to bring to it, and a great spot to finish. If it's okay, I'll take away your wonderful animals for the moment and bring back your faces here. But so thank you so much to Alisa, Jamie, and Claire, and to everyone who joined us today and had some great questions. Hopefully we'll all bring something back to our organizations and our jobs. Before we go, just a few notes on some upcoming of RCWR events. We're hitting the roads and heading to Pasadena, California for the Western Museums Association annual conference next week. So if you're planning to be there, please join us for CSI Registrars, our community service initiative at the Bowers Museum. We've got a couple spaces left. You can use that QR code right there to get you right to the registration form. But then also we'll be hosting the Collections Happy Hour, our RCWR luncheon and annual meeting on Sunday. And then if you're looking for a last session to go to of the conference, we are doing a You Collect What with case studies in the care of unusual artifacts led by the RCWR board. So please visit us at all of those. And then mark your calendars for our next Wait, You Collect What on Thursday, November 2nd with Austin Schultz of the Idaho National Laboratory talking about obsolete media. So with that, I'll just bring all of our contact information back up onto the board here. If you have questions about RCWR or programming, please feel free to reach out to rcwrvicechair@gmail.com. But if you have questions about public art or the SFO Museum, then might I suggest those emails on the right-hand side are the better ones to reach out to. But with that, thank you again, and the thanks are coming in the chat as well for our presenters. It was really informative, and I learned a lot about what I'm going to have to see on my next visit to SFO. So I hope you all have wonderful days, and we'll see you at upcoming events.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.